Now to Stars and Gripes, where we expose activist journalists, and tonight many of those activists are melting down live on air.
We have crossed a line. We are in a place we did not want to be, but we are there. The thing we were all warning about for the last few years is not coming, it is here. We are in it. This is what it's like, right? It's August, it's a Monday, every day the sun rises and the sun sets. There's everybody's personal quotient of family drama and health worries and money worries and falling in and out of love and in and out of faith. Life has not stopped, and none of our personal lives have stopped. Also, at the same time, life in the United States is profoundly changing because we do now live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country. And it sounds melodramatic to say it, I know, but just go with that.
Okay, this is supposed to be a serious news organisation, but they are going to air with the accusation that the Trump administration is consolidating a dictatorship. Joining us to break down why these presenters are losing the plot is author and commentator Adam B. Coleman. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. It is a trend, I think, that when maybe the Trump administration is performing well, the polls are not as bad as they would like them to be, then we start to get this existential rhetoric from these presenters. And to me, it's almost like an on-air therapy session. There's a degree of anxiety there, but how much of it is legitimate? How much of her concerns are legitimate? Is there a dictatorship over there?
It's not very legitimate. Years ago, politics used to be about arguing over policy differences. Most people want the same type of outcome. We're arguing about how to get there. Now we're arguing over if we live in a dictatorship or if we don't. And what's especially funny is that this narrative about if we live in a dictatorship is coming from a multimillionaire who's made her money after, claiming that either Russia is stealing our elections or we're living in a dictatorship. So, we must live in a strange type of dictatorship in America that's different than other places. But she's been allowed to make multiple millions of dollars criticizing a dictator within his own country. So you could have fooled me.
Such a great point. Moving on, you likely know Howard Stern, the wild radio presenter whose multi-year contract is worth upwards of $100 million. Well, reports have emerged that Stern is likely to lose this contract, and many pundits are pointing to the bizarre political turn his show took in recent years.
We're lucky to have you in the Oval Office and serving as the father of the country, because if you're a good father to your family, which you are, I know you'd be a good father to the country. And I want to thank you for providing a calming influence, an organized administration post-COVID, getting that vaccine out, getting NATO, getting us to feel comfortable, standing up to Putin.
We're going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated. F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Okay, Adam, a lot to unpack from that. There's been a lot of examples. We've seen this with shows more broadly, and the Stephen Colbert report, you obviously would have seen where he dressed himself up as a giant Neil and he was dancing to vaccinations, and it became this really bizarre health propaganda that was very partisan, very divisive. A lot of people obviously have very strong opinions over whether they should be vaccinated or shouldn't, and how that was handled. And you're getting these presenters bringing this into what is supposed to be entertainment programming. Now we appear to be getting this backlash. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because, someone like Howard Stern used to be seen as kind of the man of the people. He was kind of the every man's degenerate that they could kind of laugh at. But there was some relatability to him. But now he sounds like a mouthpiece for the state. He's over there kissing the feet of Joe Biden, who barely recognizes where he's sitting and who he's talking to. But this is what he turned into. He turned into the very thing he complained about. He turned into the corporate mouthpiece, and he was supposed to be the renegade. But as far as these other programs, Stephen Colbert, it's much of the same. The old late night shows used to make fun of whoever was in office. He used to, give shots to the celebrities and give shots equally. And now it only goes in one particular direction. And then the other side, which is the left, is the hero. They're the saviors of American society. So I think the American public can see the complete disconnect that is coming from entertainment, even when they dive into politics, is very, very biased. And on top of that, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. It's not even funny. It's supposed to be an entertainment show. And I love your point about Joe Biden barely even recognizing him. If you watch it, he's got no idea what is going on. And then Howard Stern is kind of throwing these softball questions. I take your point about the counterculture as well, because a lot of these personalities were these counterculture figures. And it was interesting to watch this different opinion other than this kind of beige, this diluted path of information that you get from traditional media. I think as well that, would you agree that in America and broadly across the world, having access to social media and other platforms, people being able to engage freely in discourse, the freedom mechanically to engage in those conversations mean that the Hollywood, I hate to use the label Hollywood elite, it is a bit of a cliche, but they lose that grip on us. They lose that grip on discourse, which means that people can think clearer, spot propaganda, and reject it. It has no power anymore.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And especially when you talk about these particular late night hosts, I think when the mask came off to see what they really are was actually during the pandemic, when they all had to become YouTubers overnight. Yeah. We got to see how talented and how funny they actually are when there is no audience that's clapping, when they don't have a staff of writers who are standing right on top of them, where there's no special lights to make them look good. And they actually had to be funny, and they were terrible. And I think a lot of people saw them for what they really are. They are the front men for an entire team, an entire production, to make them look the way that they look. And even with that, they're still not funny.
Such a good point. And finally, to the Sydney Sweeney scandal, which involved a bunch of weirdos who hate people with blonde hair and blue eyes. Well, it kicked on to a second week after the President of the United States got involved.
If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic.
Well, the baying mob was so outraged that Sweeney might not be the classic Hollywood personality that they even went and asked the president about it. And spare a thought for the so-called investigative journalists who actually sorted through registration information to try and figure out if this woman voted differently to them. Well, let's bring Adam back in. That last point that I just made is the thing that actually disturbs me about this. Not the rhetoric of what colour her eyes are and this insane kind of Nazi comparison, but they're almost hunting people who think differently. They're making lists of actors and personalities, and they're actively looking for evidence that they're conservative, I guess in their mind complicit, if people think that it's some kind of dictatorship. But I think that's a really disturbing trend to try and figure out maliciously who someone voted for.
Yeah, that's the weird part about, I'm just going to call it Sweeney-Gate, because what we do here. But the weird part about this entire situation is that she was reading a script. Like, that's the ad. So it's not like she turned on her cell phone cam and spewed a bunch of political ideas or controversial takes. She was just participating in an ad campaign. And all of a sudden, they want to see what she thinks and how she thinks and all these other things, when the reality is she actually hasn't said anything. Nothing that was actually of her own thinking. But yeah, it's a sad state. And the media that is looking to see who she voted for, and honestly, I don't care who she voted for, but the people who are doing this are everything that is wrong with this country. The idea that someone must be sought after, and we must dig through something that is very personal for a lot of people. Their political ideology. Most people aren't like me speaking publicly. They want to keep it to themselves for a reason. They don't want it to be used against them, weaponized, or set up in a way to separate them from people they care about. So I think our country can do a lot better than what it's doing right now.
Well said, Adam. Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I really appreciate it.